In a tense war scenario, where the clouds of uncertainty hang over a kingdom about to face an imminent massacre, the opposing forces, numerous and merciless, advance towards destruction, and hopelessness sets in. However, at the darkest moment, an extraordinary event occurs. A heavenly angel, sent by God, appears on the battlefield. What unfolds is an epic scene of divine power, where this angel defeats no less than 185,000 soldiers, thwarting the plans for destruction and ensuring the survival of the kingdom. In today's video, we'll see all the details of this war. So, hang on, click the like button, subscribe to the channel, and let's get to the story. Against the turbulent backdrop of the ancient kingdoms, a remarkable figure emerged in the kingdom of Judah. King Hezekiah, son of Ahaz, took the throne at the tender age of 25, around the year 715 BC, after the death of his father. More than a mere dynastic succession, Hezekiah stood out for his deep commitment to the God of Israel. From the first days of his reign, Hezekiah revealed an unwavering devotion to the Lord. His first major undertaking was an energetic campaign to purify the temple in Jerusalem. Aware of the importance of this sacred site, Hezekiah undertook a mission to remove any trace of idolatry that had infiltrated the temple precincts. Altars dedicated to pagan gods were demolished, and the idols that had led the people astray were removed. Hezekiah was not content with just destroying the idolatrous elements, but also established a true worship of the Lord. He instituted practices and rituals that reaffirmed faith in the God of Israel, restoring the spiritual purity of the temple. This campaign against idolatry was not a mere formality, but a reflection of Hezekiah's sincere heart. His zeal for the Lord was evident, as he did not hesitate to confront the root practices that had led the nation astray from its divine purpose. His leadership not only shaped temple worship, but also inspired a spiritual renewal among the people of Judah. A curious story concerns a bronze serpent erected by Moses during the Exodus, as recorded in the book of Numbers. Its creation was linked to divine healing, where those who were bitten by poisonous snakes could look at the bronze serpent and be healed. However, over time, this serpent became an object of worship known as Neston. Instead of being a symbol of trust in God's power to heal, the serpent became an idol, violating the fundamental principles of worshiping one God. When Hezekiah undertook his religious reforms in Judah, he made the courageous decision to destroy the bronze serpent. His action not only broke ties with idolatrous practices, his commitment was more than an expression of religious zeal. It was a demonstration of unwavering trust in divine providence. By purifying the temple and abolishing idolatry, Hezekiah not only restored true worship, but also paved the way for divine intervention in his life and nation. The Lord responded to this act of faith with blessings, revealing himself as a God who honors those who seek him wholeheartedly. Thus, the story of King Hezekiah is not just a chapter in the narrative of Judah, but an enduring testimony of how sincere commitment to God can transform not just the life of a king, but an entire nation. Hezekiah left behind a legacy of faithfulness, reminding us of the importance of putting God at the center of our lives and societies. However, the worst scenario was yet to come. In a period of political turmoil and constant threats, the imposing shadow of Sennacherib, the Assyrian king, loomed over Judah's borders. It was a time when nations were defined by military strength, and Sennacherib led the Assyrian nation, considered one of the most powerful in the world at that time. The Assyrian army, known for its cruelty and military efficiency, was an imminent threat to the surrounding kingdoms. Sennacherib, in his quest for expansion, advanced mercilessly through the cities of Judah, leaving a trail of destruction wherever he went. However, his covetous gaze was fixed on the pearl of the region, Jerusalem. Hezekiah, the God-fearing king, found himself cornered by the Assyrian threat. Seeking a peaceful solution, he tried to persuade Sennacherib to give up invading Jerusalem. In a desperate gesture, he offered a significant tribute, mobilizing the treasures of the temple and palace in Jerusalem. The tribute was monumental: 10.5 tons of silver and 1 ton and 50 kilograms of gold. An offering that reflected not only material wealth, but the depth of the desire to preserve the holy city. Hezekiah, in his quest for peace, was willing to sacrifice priceless treasures to protect his people and his capital. However, Sennacherib's response revealed the arrogance typical of the conquerors of the time. Disregarding the offer, the Assyrian king openly defied both Hezekiah and the God of Israel. His defiant words were echoed, claiming that, just as the gods of the conquered nations could not stop him, The God of Israel would also be powerless in the face of his onslaught. This affront not only exacerbated tensions, but solidified the need for divine intervention. Hezekiah, faced with the rejection of his attempts at peace, turned to the only source that could guarantee deliverance: prayer and trust in the Lord. Faced with the imminent threat of Assyria, Hezekiah faced a period of intense uncertainty and doubt. The biblical account highlights his initial anguished reaction to Sennacherib's ultimatum. He tore his clothes and covered himself in sackcloth, traditional symbols of mourning and despair in the Jewish culture of the time. King Hezekiah's heart throbbed with despair, but his faith remained unshaken. As the shadows of the invasion loomed over Jerusalem, Hezekiah chose not to surrender to despair, but to raise his cry to the God of Israel. Instead of succumbing completely to fear and uncertainty, Hezekiah took concrete action. He went to the Lord's temple to worship, seeking God's presence in the midst of adversity. This attitude reflects Hezekiah's understanding that, even in the face of a formidable threat, his primary trust and refuge were to be found in the Lord. Moreover, Hezekiah didn't hesitate to seek divine guidance through the prophet Isaiah. In this scenario of anguish, the prophet Isaiah, chosen as a spokesman for the Most High, brings a divine message to King Hezekiah. Instructed by the Lord, Isaiah announced words of consolation and a promise of deliverance. The prophet's message was like a balm to Hezekiah's afflicted heart. "Do not be afraid of the words you have heard, with which the servants of the king of Assyria have blasphemed against me. I will bring you back the way you came." Isaiah conveys the Lord's words, offering divine guarantees of protection and supernatural intervention. The God of Israel would not remain indifferent to the pleas of his faithful servant. The promise was clear: the city would not be delivered into the hands of the king of Syria. The God Hezekiah sought in prayer was about to manifest his power in response to the trust placed in him. Isaiah prophesied that Sennacherib would return to his own land and be defeated by the sword in his own homeland. The prophetic message not only calmed the king's heart, but also strengthened his faith. Hezekiah, even in the face of the immensity of the threat, chose to trust in the word of the Lord spoken through Isaiah. This trust was not just a matter of military strategy, but a total surrender to the God who controls destiny. The next day, the scene was bleak. The walls of Jerusalem bore witness to the growing shadow of the Assyrian army led by Sennacherib. However, while the city was about to face its most terrible ordeal, a heavenly chapter was about to unfold in the darkness of the night. When the silence was only interrupted by the distant murmur of the Assyrian camp, a divine intervention was underway. The Lord sent his angel, a heavenly figure shrouded in light and power, to confront the army threatening his chosen people. The angel, an emissary of the Almighty, hovered over the Assyrian camp like a divine sentinel. In a single night, a celestial being defeated 185,000 Assyrian soldiers. The heavenly battlefield was beyond human comprehension, and victory came not through human military strategies, but through the supernatural power of the angel sent by the God of Israel. The miracle went beyond military defeat. It was a tangible manifestation of divine care and protection. The promise made through the prophet Isaiah was being fulfilled. The God of Israel not only heard Hezekiah's anguished prayers, but acted with incomparable power to deliver his people from the Assyrian threat. As the inhabitants of Jerusalem walked through the fields that were once the site of the Assyrian camp, they came across an astonishing sight. Where the tents of the enemy army once stood, 185,000 lifeless bodies now lay. A graphic demonstration of the divine power that had been at work during the night. The silence that enveloped the defeated camp was interrupted by murmurs of amazement and gratitude. Each corpse bore witness to the supernatural intervention that had transformed the impending nightmare into an undeniable miracle. The people's faith, which had faced a night of apprehension, blossomed in the morning light, now illuminated by divine victory. The citizens of Judah not only contemplated the traces of the miracle, but felt deeply in their hearts that the victory over the Assyrians was not won by military strategies or human strength. It was the visible manifestation of divine favor. That morning became a living testimony to the faithfulness of the God of Israel. Sennacherib's fate was marked by a surprising turn of events. The leader of the Assyrian army managed to escape, despite the magnitude of the miracle. After his failed attempts to conquer Jerusalem and his mockery of the God of Israel, he returned to Nineveh. However, his end was not as great as he might have imagined. While worshiping in his own temple, Sennacherib was murdered by his own sons, Adramelech and Zeir. The precise details of this event are not entirely clear in the historical narrative. However, the Bible reports that during this act of worship, Adramelech and Zeir attacked Sennacherib with a sword, taking his life. This shocking event demonstrates that arrogance and disbelief before God do not go unpunished. Divine justice unexpectedly caught up with Sennacherib, highlighting that no king, no matter how powerful, can escape God's sovereign control over life and death. This tragic outcome reveals that mockery against the Lord has serious consequences and that divine sovereignty cannot be challenged without facing repercussions. As for the king, after the victory over Sennacherib and the retreat of the Assyrian forces, Hezekiah faced a serious illness. The Bible describes this situation in the second book of Kings, chapter 20. Hezekiah became so ill that the prophet Isaiah, son of Amos, came to him and told him that he would not recover and should prepare for death. Faced with this news, Hezekiah once again turned to the Lord in prayer. He reminded God of his devotion, integrity, and service to the Lord. In tears, he begged God to remember him and to reconsider his situation. God, in response to Hezekiah's heartfelt prayer, sent Isaiah back to tell him that he had heard his plea. God decided to heal Hezekiah and added a sign as a guarantee. Isaiah instructed that a paste of figs be applied to Hezekiah's wound as a miraculous sign. Hezekiah's illness was cured and he regained his health. Furthermore, as a manifestation of his mercy, God promised Hezekiah another 15 years of life. This extension of time was a direct response to Hezekiah's fervent prayer and devotion to the Lord. This story highlights not only God's healing power, but also his willingness to hear and answer the prayers of his faithful servants. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments if God has already manifested himself in your life after you made a prayer request. Hugs and God bless.